This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Brooke, let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 65, The Chronotope and the Plus-1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Zettelcast. I'm Victoria, the author of Zettelkasten for fiction writers, soon to be released. You can buy it as a book or use it as a doorstop. It works equally either way. But with that, our topic for today. I have been deeply involved in researching and exploring issues of the Chronotope, and that is simply a literary device, fancy word for the time and the place that is used to anchor a narrative. So I thought it would be fun for this episode if we ask our plus ones to produce for us a place or a time that we've used in something that we've written, and then one that we haven't. And I thought it would be fun to take a look at how these things find their way into our writing, how they may or may be significant, just kind of unpack the process of tackling time and place in our writing and see what comes of it. So like I said, I asked everyone to bring something that you had used and something that you have not. So does anybody want to start with something that you've used to anchor something that you've written in a particular time or a particular place? I would say read us the note card and then give us a little bit of a sense of how and why you used it the way that you did. Anyone?
I'll go first. I don't mind. Okay. So the one that I chose, the card is a little bit incomprehensible because I use my writing. When I'm writing, I write onto a yellow legal pad and I number them. And then I keep a track of what references, where are the pieces as I wrote my different drafts and my notes. So my card just identifies the article. It was something that I posted to my Substack, Kathleen Sprackland, and the title is Cracking the Emotion Code. And the time and the place, I made a card for it as though it were one of Victoria's experience cards. So this I newly created as though it was the chronotype for this story. And so the time was 1994 and the place was Eugene, Oregon, specifically Oregon Social Learning Center, which was a research clinic for human behavior modification, specifically trying to help delinquent boys. Well, in the course of that study, we found out that the boys actually got worse, not better. And then I was the statistician on a paper that showed the support mechanism. What was the positive reinforcement for their delinquency? And it turned out to be positive affect that they gave one another when sharing their stories of delinquency. The worse they were, the more whoo, wow, whoo, whoos they got back from their fellow delinquents, who all were in a group together. And we were able to demonstrate that the amount of pleasure they got from it matched the amount of time they gave attention to the person that was giving them the positive feedback. And it's something called the matching law. But the reason why it was really significant for me and why I wrote the article was recalling this experience and recalling being a part of writing this scientific paper made me recall that we were able to capture emotions in a tiny numeric code. We could capture a very complex emotional scene. And that was it was kind of the final piece that dropped in when I was creating my book, Writing with Emotion, that let me realize, wait a minute, I've got to dig out those emotions because they can be used for storytelling. So that's the one that I used. And the time and the space was 1994, Eugene, Oregon Social Learning Center.
Okay, so right out of the gate, Kathleen goes rogue, and rather than pulling an existing card and explaining, maybe that card sat in the note box for a year and then, got pulled and used for something. She went the other direction, and this perfectly demonstrates one of the goals of this exercise, which is, and it's actually something I write about in my book, in regards to what do you do with a piece that you've written that's not in your note cards? Well, you do exactly what Kathleen did. You go through that piece, and maybe you just pull out those key words. So 1994 would be key. Eugene, Oregon would be key. Whatever those things are that are going to take you back to that moment. And then from what you've written, you populate your card with the important things that you want to pull out of it. Now, you might be wondering, well, how would you use that? Why do you go through something that you've written and create a note card from it? Particularly around something like a chronotope. Why are you just recording the time and place of something? Well, in terms of how you use your Zettelkasten, it becomes important because 5 years from now, when you think back, I remember writing that thing, and you search your Google documents and you can't find the thing that you wrote, if you've taken the time to just grab those key elements and put them on a note card and keyword it into your index, you can go straight to your index and look for Eugene, or you can look for 1994, whatever brain crumbs you've left your brain to find, you just go back and look for those things and then you find them. And specifically, something like a time and a place, that's something that's universal. Everyone anchors to, oh yeah, when I wrote that scene in the book, I remember that scene takes place in, a forest in somewhere Southern California. So you're going to go to forest and find the thing. So that's a perfect example of building what you might consider a story kind of Bible or a series Bible, which is just something that chronicles all the important information from something that you've written. So capturing it after the fact is just as important if you haven't done it up front. Either way, get that stuff into the note cards because it helps you find those details later. Okay. Next.
My tagline was how I came to know emotions could be captured in a code. So my keywords are emotions captured in a code. And I actually filed it took the time to index it, and was delighted to have made this card because it ties very much to the symbolic work that we are currently doing with establishing a symbolism that describes the emotions. And therefore, this card has a good home in my Zettelkasten. So yes, I'm very glad I had this exercise, which made me make this card.
Awesome. Cool.
And it has a chance to, have offspring.
Mm-hmm.
But even the bare value that you're talking about, I mean, that answers so much of the problem that you, Victoria, have talked about with your novel, where it just became too big to hold in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I could
next.
go.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead,
well,
Mel.
Simply because I also went a little bit rogue. Because
I'm shocked.
No, I'm a rule follower. No, the thing is, I mostly use my Zettelkasten for writing nonfiction at this point. There's a little bit of fiction work in there, but I'm also waiting on that book that will tell me how to do it. And actually, time and space is something that I have written about in terms of Ramon Llull recently, just a few issues ago. I wrote an entire monthly issue about ways that his system analyzes time and space, and there's a lot of different ways. And and it's not so much that there's different ways of analyzing time and space, but it is that those are the coordinates that apply to so many other analyses. Like if you are asking what happened, you have to say, well, when are you talking about? What happened when? What happened where? And if you have a different when and a different where, then your answer can change for the question. And that's true for so many of the questions. And so the way Llull puts it, he says that you can apply those questions to when and where, but really it makes more sense that you're actually applying when and where to these various questions. So I wrote a whole newsletter exploring that and exploring how that fit into his concepts, his version of the great chain of being, which takes you from, the tiniest building blocks of matter all the way up to God in an unbroken chain. And, the concept of time and space changes depending on your level. So that's something that I have written about time and space, not necessarily using specific instances of it. And all the rest of my cards are for things that I haven't written, so I'll wait for that section.
Cool. Okay, so let's unpack that for just a second. Very important observation there, which is if you consider when and where, how you answer those questions are going to affect the other pieces profoundly. So even something as simple as if your when and where is here, making the decision as a writer about, does the next thing need to happen after? Are we moving forward on a timeline? Or do I need to break that? And am I inserting a flashback or a memory or an imagination? Am I breaking that bit of time up? And if so, do I go to a different place? So, if you're plot modeling this or mind mapping it out, as you start to sketch out how those things affect one another, it's another really good way to help either excavate or imagine your story elements. Because if something is happening and you get stuck or you're not sure how to drive that story, perhaps changing up the chronotope, either the time or the place, is the answer, or it will at least show you a through line so that you can make the decisions about how you want to proceed. So very good observation that it can help you abstract out and get a sense of how do I want to tell this story and how do I want to move it forward or backward. Fantastic. It's working.
So I have a card that preceded the little Roanoke story that that followed it. So the tagline is "Visit Wendy Whitman's grave in Sadie, Croaks."
Okay.
And this is not a spoiler because I've already shared this story with it's early in the book. So after the build up, which is we already know is this sort of what Victoria called it's the barn raising. After the build-up, Malcolm, Marjorie, and Jenna bike into the cemetery for a visit to his father's grave. This is marked Wendy T. Whitman. The marble stone is pockmarked on the edges. So in the book, this scene happens after the build-up, and there's another companion card that's kind of a large story card as part of the book, and it's revealed in the story there. I'm paraphrasing the tagline. When is this? A mystery. We've already established, well, it's this planet called Lydia. So it's on Lydia. When? Don't know. They don't know. So, yeah, and this particular, I don't have a card for this, but I think that I should make it. So this card is based on, in part, in small part, there's an actual cemetery in my head that my grandparents and parents are buried in. And so, of course, I've got memories of that place. And it's the sort of cemetery that has no above ground elements to it. It's all flat with to the ground stones. And in the small town that I grew up in, this was a very welcome addition to that particular space of real estate, because the largest, most prominent cemetery that you would drive past on on Broadway was what it was called. It was competition among the headstones.
Oh.
And the most obnoxious guy had the biggest one. Lit. Yeah. So they were very happy to have, this demure little cemetery become available shortly before, sometime in the 70s. It was, or maybe it's this late 60s. It was before my grandmother died in the 70s. And she and my grandfather and my mom and dad bought their plots right then.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so there we have it. This takes us to the other end of the spectrum. I can't believe we didn't pre-coordinate this, because this is exactly what I wanted. So what Julianne has shared takes us to the other end of it, which is a piece that's written, but that is written with an inkling of something that's reality-based. So that fills in the last piece of the puzzle. You have a bit of a memory, a recollection, an observation, something, and that in turn fuels the idea that allows you to set something in a particular place. And so, yes, absolutely, that needs to be note carded. If for no other reason than the story that you've just shared has such great little details, those are worth preserving. Those are worth grabbing onto, because you never know what little thing later on in the story might be relevant or useful. So that's another reason, another driver behind using your Zettelkasten as your +1 as a writer. Because even if it's just a little bit of a recollection and you just jot that on a card, you never know when it's going to come in handy. And the cool bonus from what Julianne shared is anchoring her story very firmly in this place that is, full color surround sound. It feels like a very real world, but outside of time. So there you have it, folks. You can manipulate these things. Maybe you use one, but not the other one. Or maybe the mystery of the story itself is you delay the reveal of one or the other aspect. Those are all things that you can play with as a writer that are exponentially growing because of what's in your notebox. It all feeds into the same process. So for mine, I did what Julianne did. I chose a card, 7110.1/2, which is, it's the J.C. Nichols Memorial Horse Fountains. It was renovated in 2015. It was installed, I don't think I have that on my card. It's on a different card. It was installed back at the turn of the century, but it's essentially a center life-sized horse fountain in the middle of the plaza here in Kansas City. It's a big outdoor kind of Italian shopping area, palazzos and brick streets and terracotta buildings and all that. And in the opening of my novel, it was important to me that my main female character rush out of the museum and rush down what used to be Rush Creek. It now has a different name, Boulevard. And in order to get where she's going, she has to go past this fountain. Well, number one, I spent my whole life knocking around down on the plaza, so I know the area very well. and that part of the book, those scenes are very much a love letter to that part of the city. So it was important to me that the place be that fountain. And when I wrote it, then I made notes about when it was originally built as a way to water the horses and the dogs. Like before there were cars, you had horses and dogs with you because that's how you rode in and out of town. So they had all these little fountains around town, and then eventually they were built up into these really beautiful monuments. And I thought, that I want to have that in my book. And that's how it started. And then as I had her in the writing, I'm looking at these cards and I'm thinking about the fountains, and I have her rush out of the museum and she goes down there, and I thought, ooh, how about we introduce a phobia? And at first it was going to be something water-based, but I'm like, dude, it's a fountain. Like, you can literally stand in it. That's not very scary. But the horses, these bronze sculptures, are life-sized, and they're all rearing up and like trying to buck their riders, and there's alligators and bears, and the fountain is pretty spectacular. And I thought, what if her fear is of horses? And I kid you not, that drove a huge part of the narrative from beginning to end. And it all happened because I just researched the fountains and started thinking about, how can I incorporate this cool place? And out of that place grew the character wound that drives the whole book. So that is another piece of how just doing your homework, doing your note cards, keywording them so you can find them, and letting your mind marinate and play with those ideas will help pull you through a story, often in very unexpected ways, because I didn't intend to have horses involved at all. And then it became a central point simply because of the way that I had it written on my cards. So there you go, folks. Do your cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is inspiring.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. It's so exciting. I mean, I feel like such a nerd that I get so excited about this stuff, but I think for me, it comes from, I was stuck for so long. I mean, 25 years is a freaking long time to have a story in your head and not have a way to get it out. And having it safe in the note cards was the bridge that bridged the whole gap and allowed me to do it. And to feel excited about it again in a way that I felt like I had a handle on it. That's the cool part. When you feel like you got it, then it's good.
And I will just say, I'll just say the opening scene is great. It's very memorable.
I'm getting back to it, I promise. As a matter of fact, when we were at the basketball game Saturday night, I'm literally sitting there scribbling out stuff that came out of the smell in the gym. You're at a high school championship basketball game. I walked in and I was like, wow, that's a barn smell, and immediately started writing. So yeah, you never know. Take your cards with you. You never know.
It's boy barn.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And how. Yeah, Mel knows.
I know. I'm 15 and 16.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that is one example of something that you've used in writing and where it came from and how you used it. So now let's flip over to something that you've not used. Does anybody want to share something that you have but that hasn't really been time or place used yet?
I'd like to share for Deb. Deb wasn't able to come here, but she left something, and it's kind of the perfect timing for it because this one piece bridges the two. It's one posting, but it bridges something she has written and something that she's in the process of not only writing but creating. So this is a real powerful one for her. Now you talk about the chronotype. Well, some time back, you may recall that Deb had us do one of our Zettelcasts on the difference between Chronos, Chronos, and Kairos, the felt time versus the clock time. And so that's what she brings into her chronotype. How about the Kairos Chronos uh, in the chronotope? So you're bringing in those two kinds of time as well as the where. And so she has a character that she's already written into her, some lines of her story, named Gigi. And Gigi is a very, very emotionally aware character. So much so that from infancy on, he's had this ability to produce tranquility amongst warring factions. And he's this spectacular basketball coach. He's going to end up finding his way to Lydia. But here, what we see in the graphic is we see Gigi pumping up Chronos with Kairos. And the way it relates to, so that's how it relates to her, the past story that she has written, but to her future story that is more than a story, but it will also show up in story form, is the question of senior isolation. And for this, she's talking about the fact that when seniors end up getting very isolated to a specific place, their home, usually often it's their home scene, or maybe some kind of a retirement center, they get very, very limited as to space, as to where. Their where becomes very narrow. And as far as Chronos goes, they become labeled with the time on their bodies. So it's their age becomes Chronos, and their Kairos is scrunched into not less and less and less and less. They're treated as though they have no Kairos left almost. And what you end up with are seniors who feel that they've lost their value and they can end up being very isolated. And what Deb is bringing into this is this concept of a way in which seniors can connect. And that's what she's putting forth. I'm not going to give too many details of it because she'll be announcing it in her own good time. But a way of bringing seniors together in a group that she calls Gray Hair Matters, where in which you can't do anything about the Chronos that we're wearing on our bodies, but we can do something about the Kairos, and that the community relating within itself and sharing the lifetime of experiences one with another can just restore Kairos to people who've been very much deprived of it, and also crack into senior isolation. So it straddles both sides of your question.
Yeah. Way to go, Deb.
Yeah.
She's so fantastic. It's another one of Deb's gems. So let's unpack that for just a second. It speaks back to using one of the elements as a driver. So in this regard, she's dissected the element of time into its component parts and then used those as a thread to pull, for all practical purposes, to pull you through that narrative. But in the same way that if it's a place, maybe a piece of something happens in one place, but then there's a memory or something time element that takes you to a different place. So in her example, separating out the two elements of time and then applying them to our reality, she's not talking necessarily only about fiction. She's talking about a very real phenomenon that has a cause that certainly has some kind of an antidote. So, a lot to unpack there, but what a fantastic exercise for how to, and you can do this with any device. This is another purpose of this exercise, is you can take any literary device and simply find a way to dissect it. Just bisect it into its two component parts, the two common denominators that you can think of. That alone can drive a story, or even a scene, or even just help you anchor a setting. And again, as long as you have it saved on a card and keyworded so you can find that thing, if you're just thinking about time, you go to T and you look up time and go grab those cards, that can be the thing that can give you the thread you need in order to anchor a setting or a bit of a scene to help move you through the story. Because for me, in the end, the Zettelkasten is all about being a story driver in some way. It either organizes a story, it helps you figure out the story, it tracks the story. It's all about narrative. So that is a fantastic element to add to your toolkit. Just take one of the things and pull it apart and see if that's the thread that you need to help pull you through.
Mm.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, next.
Okay, I'll go as me. Okay, so this is a real life card that I real life created in real life time. We had in the month of November, we had our experience challenge. And I wrote this card out on November 9th. November 9th. And it's about the title. I'll read the card. Its tagline is "The Nebulas Will Have to Meet Up, Got Real." And here's the card. Today I ran into a friend I had not crossed paths with in some time. We finished our brief conversation with the oft repeated, "We'll have to get together for lunch." Only this time she followed through with a specific day suggestion. And so tomorrow we're meeting for lunch. And my response was, tomorrow, uh-oh, she usually arrives with a small gift in hand. I think I'll make her a notebook like this one because she's also a writer. So I made her a little experience collection notebook, and it was also my chance to try out my new laminator tool for the first time because I laminated her cover. And I haven't used it yet. It doesn't have a number.
Awesome. See, now there's a plot twist right there. So using a note card created for the experience collection led to the creation of a physical object. So that's a whole nother wild hair that you never know what value or what idea just capturing your experiences is going to lead to. I mean, it's ridiculous, the possibilities when you start to think about it and just allow the process to work. Or Kathleen's just showing off. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yes, and.
I love it. Love it.
She's the one that followed up.
No, that's great. That's perfect. All right. Next.
Well, I didn't get into the experience cards. I didn't even think about it because they're not currently in the Zettelkasten yet, because I've got them all collected together for our next phases that we will be doing on LiLLiPub. Perhaps this is a good time to boost LiLLiPub.
LiLLiPub, that's where we hang out when we're not here in YouTube land. And if you did not get a chance to be involved in this experience collection, we have something similar coming up in January, and also Victoria has some suggestions for us and how to use these. So come on over to LiLLiPub, and you can also follow us on the Roanoke project.
Yeah.
So yes, the experience cards would have been an excellent way to find times and places, but didn't even think of it. But in my actually filed cards in my Zettelkasten, I actually ran into a little problem when I was looking up one of my cards on time. And it highlights how useful it is to have the tagline system where cards are filed at multiple points in your index, because I had the card that's got a tagline, "Time as a Child at Play." And I remembered that card. And my index, the index entry I was looking at, said that it was at 1500-1A. I'm like, okay. And I went over to 1500 and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't looking right. And in fact, 1500-1 is Victoria's favorite section of my Zettelkasten, the insults section. And I'm like, there is no way that that's here. And I looked all
Wrong
through it.
neighborhood.
Yeah, I couldn't find it anywhere. So that was under time. So I tried play and it had the same address. And I'm like, boy, am I going to have to search every card to figure out where I put this thing? But fortunately, the very first one, child, had the correct address, which was 5100, not 1500. Dyslexia for the win. So I did find the card without having to search through everything, and then I went and fixed those other index entries. But yeah, I was completely stymied for a while there. But anyway, time is a child at play. It's a quote from Thomas More, who wrote one of the books he wrote was called something like The Reenchantment of Everyday Life, which I have, but I haven't had a chance to read yet. But I don't know where that quote is from specifically. I got it from the preface he did for another book, and maybe he wrote it just for that. Time need not be imagined in modern terms only as an abstract structure into which life is poured. This is a serious old man's saturnine version of time. We might also think of time as a child at play, full of unknown chance and serendipity. Haven't had a chance to use that card, but it sure is a fun image, and it's been rattling around in my Zettelkasten and in my brain for since November of 2024, so more than a year. At some point, it will connect with something, and then we'll be off to the races.
Awesome. Now, did you no, you said you haven't read the book yet. So how did you find the quote? Did you just run across it in like research or something?
There was a different book called Time Shifting by Rechtschaeffer, Stephen Recht. I forget his name. It was long in German, but it was kind of a fluffy 90s book, but it had a few good bits. But the preface was actually the best part, which was written by Thomas More, and that's where I got that quote from.
Awesome.
So these two cards, because it's kind of a part one and a part two, I just made this morning. But I'm very glad for this exercise because I already have a little novella rattling around in my head based on this. And it needs to be a card so that it can start taking life. So the first, where I'm filing these, I have a memory section, just a place for memories. And the address is M dot and then the real, or, the actual or approximate date. So that's how I find it just by Chronos. So the first card is from 2009, July 4th. It is the day of my mother's 80th birthday celebration, scheduled for July rather than February, because nobody wants to travel across the country to be in Mount Vernon, Illinois in February. My husband and niece, following mom's clear directions and a GPS, arrive at King Barbacoa to pick up the food for the party. The little diner is closed for the holiday, but the two people inside are expecting them. The food's all ready, and they ring up the order on a mechanical cash register that looks like it's from the 50s. My husband makes small talk about how we can't get barbecue like this in Connecticut. And the man says, "We ship FedEx."
Perfect. Yeah, we can.
So the tagline of this is King Barbacoa, small town institution. Yeah. The card that goes with it, the companion card, is from March of 2012. The man from St. Louis that my sister found to take the stair lift from my mother's house makes quick work of it. I express my appreciation at his making the 90-minute drive. He says, "Oh, no problem. I'm glad for the excuse to go to King Barbacoa."
Oh, that is fantastic.
An excuse to go to King Barbacoa is the tagline for that. So there's a novella in this place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a whole lot to unpack there.
Yeah, and even I've it's been rattling around, and I almost the story that we did for Deb's challenge around Thanksgiving, I almost wrote my first little drabble based on the characters I'm imagining from my King Barbacoa novella. It wasn't quite ripe yet. And even in just making these two cards, there's more to it all now. So, yeah, this stuff is it's magic. It's nerd magic.
I want a t-shirt that says nerd magic.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, no, that's that I love. Let me jump back to Mel for 1 second. So he demonstrated perfectly. Sometimes the filing and numbering goes off the rails, and that's okay. You're going to make mistakes. Too many people are either resistant to sorting and filing and addressing because they think they're going to do it wrong, or they're afraid of making a mistake. Get messy. Jump in and just do it. It's like writing. Until you have words on the page, you have nothing to edit. There's no writing until you do some writing. It's the same with your Zettelkasten. Until you start putting that stuff in there and working with it, and then go, oh, that doesn't belong there. Where's that? You figure these things out. You just solve the problems, but you got to have problems to solve. And then that brings us back to Julianne with her memory section. She marks it with an M. Everybody's like, oh, wait, it's got to be a number first. No, it doesn't. It can have a symbol first. It's entirely up to you. The important thing is the system makes sense to you and helps you find your stuff. So with that little advertisement out of the way, so see what Julianne did there. She took the memory, she took the actual event, the people, the place, everything is real, but allowing yourself to abstract across 2 points in time and then start to let those threads percolate. Like she said, it's not marinated yet. It's not ready. Again, the important thing is just getting those details down on a card and then just let them sit. You don't have to do anything with it for years if it doesn't work yet. So that brings us to mine, which is, mine is my 7110.1/2 card. It's labeled Terra Feminarium Map. And what this is, I hope you can see this. Sometimes if I have something that won't fit on a note card, instead I put it on a sheet of paper and then I just fold it into quarters and staple it to a card. So I treat it like a card even though it's a piece of paper. So this, speaking to the issue of letting something marinate over time, this is a map of an island called Terra Feminarium in the Baltic Sea. And so the island is right here. So this is all sea, and this is land, and this is my island. And it sits in Glacier Bay, and it's the point that used to help navigate between the Glacier Bay and the Gulf of Finland. And the reason this island is important to me is because it's the seafaring women's island. That's what Terra Feminarium means, is women's island, from which my main female character's matrilineal history heralds. So I know all of these pieces. I know that, for example, in many of the ports, there were areas of portage that were only available for women's ships because they were weaving and growing and providing goods. And so they would sail to these areas, and only the women were allowed to offboard there, go to the market, come back. So I was fascinated by this whole development of women's commerce across this area because of what they were doing on this island, which was growing and weaving and whatnot. I know all of this is important. Can't tell you how or why, but it figures into my story. So the easiest way for me to lock those details into my head was to just draw out a map of what that region looked like. And then everything on that map reminds me, here's where they were, here's where their ports were. You know, I've got a little note, goods and services. So it just helps me remember those key items. I know they will probably show up in book 2. I don't think they're going to be important in book 1, but None of that's written yet. It's just all captured in the representation of the map for safekeeping until, I get deep enough into book 2 that I know where her history becomes important, and then I can write those scenes out. So that's just another example of anchoring all of that stuff in that place during that time, which is, I didn't write the time on here, but I want to say it's late 1600s, if I remember right, but that's in other note cards in the same section. So I have some of those details lined out because that's all reality. That's all history. I just don't know how I'm going to fictionalize it yet. So that's just another example of using a mapping place so that you can recall those things when you need them. And with that concludes our exercise.
Well, I want to hear what Julianne can contribute to that because, I have these loose memories floating around from Lynn Kelly's book on, the geography being tied to memory. And it strikes me that having that map there, as opposed to word, is like inviting your entire subconscious mind to participate in constructing something to go with that scene.
Yeah. So one of the things that Anthony Metivier warns against is using things that you need to memorize as a memory palace before it's already fully baked, right? So it can become one if through other means, if you get to the point where you could draw that map again from memory, it's now a memory palace for you. But if you make that, I have to be able to draw it, if it's like it becomes a rote memory exercise, like I get it in my head, then you choose something else.
Yeah.
But once you start doing this, you find, and he has several videos about using paintings, for example, as memory palaces. He says, but start with paintings that you know, like the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
And he has, various things about what would make it, what makes a memory palace not add to your cognitive load, as opposed to just be the basis for something where I can wander around that in my mind and I know exactly where I am and I'm keeping track and it's now a stable home. So once you start working with this, then all sorts of things become memory palaces. Maps that you've drawn, maps that you've got hanging on your wall, if you're one of these people who just loves maps, anything with place.
Yeah. Well, it's so powerful. We wander all day, every day from place to place and don't think much about it necessarily. But when you start using place as a lens for narrative, you realize, I feel like the top of my head blew off when I started really digging into this and, thinking about how people use a place to anchor you in history. That's where the concept began, is using a time and a place to anchor a historical narrative. Of course, now, the application is much broader, but you don't really think about it until you really start to think about, holy cow, how different would my favorite book or story be if it were set someplace completely different? When you start making those changes in your mind, then you really start getting some ideas for how you can discover and drive and write great stories simply by manipulating the concepts of time and place. And you can tell a lot to the reader without ever saying anything, direct. That's the piece that I love, is you don't have to point it out and say, because everything takes place in a dark castle, this is a Gothic novel. It's all there just because of how you set the scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. And I love it that that's another way that you can subtly communicate with a good reader. That is ridiculously exciting to me. Like the ways that you write about Roanoke, as I see Julianne develop these different places in the world, it says a lot to us without saying anything. Like, for example, the graveyard. I mean, that's both fascinating and hilarious all at the same time, and it just anchors us into that piece of the story. So yeah, you can say a lot and never say much at all, but a good reader is going to get it all. And when they get to the end, if you've done your job, they're going to go back to the beginning and start again because it was such a great trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun leaving, Easter egg hunts are fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, who could not love a novel that has a cemetery named Sadie Croaks?
So true.
Well,
So true.
on the memory thing, I was thinking about, because you looked around, I saw you looking around on your walls, Kathleen.
Yeah, there's a picture that, oh, maybe I
I
can
was,
turn.
and I was thinking, yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
just incredible number of locations in that
indeed, indeed. And I was thinking, again, my mom's on my brain a little bit this morning. So she made, um, when my niece, who lived nearby, within a couple of hours, was a little girl, my mom made, using counted cross stitch, a bunch of little pictures from Mother Goose nursery rhymes
Oh,
with all the little characters.
Mhm.
And having spent that amount of time making those things, if she had gotten into memory, each of those is a memory palace.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You've got
I'm gonna print it out.
there you go.
Is a letter of the alphabet, wildflower embroidery. Took about a year to make. And beyond that, if I can really get this thing to move, I may have to, well, I'm not sure I can get it all the way around, but we'll try. On this very wall, there's a set of 4 cross-stitch embroideries of scenes. They're all like Victorian scenes. One is a train station, one is 2 are street villages, and one is a ship, a port side with sailing vessels. And each of those took about a year to make. So
Yeah.
this and that the letter of the alphabet wildflowers, I mean, I can tell you right now, I can name them in order, and I have begun using it as a memory palace. Because by the time you've done that, as you just said.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 There's another way that you can get images into your memory like that that could be used as a memory palace, and that's actually, I talk a lot about discursive meditation, and
Mhm.
you can, well, I had a Chinese wall hanging that I had sitting in front of my meditation space, and I just used it as a focal point. Just focus on the one part of it, just to keep my brain sort of focused while I was learning to do discursive meditation, which is about, instead of emptying your mind, it's about focusing on one thought and following out all of the repercussions of that thought. But in the process, by focusing on this wall hanging, I knew all of the little pieces of it, and the pieces started to actually correspond to different things that I was thinking about. If I was meditating on things frequently, then they would become associated with different parts of that painting. So you could absolutely hang whatever picture that you're going to use in front of you, and you could even focus on it in discursive meditation, and like, oh, okay, there's a little dog in this corner, and what does the little dog mean, and how does that relate to the rest of it, and you would have it in your memory, and it would be available to use as a memory palace.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, this is definitely one for the books. Holy cow, there's a lot to pack in here.
Yeah. Again, that's the power of location.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're wired for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, should we have one more reminder from Kathleen? If people want to find us, where might they go?
You might come to LiLLiPub.org. We're a membership group. The dues are $8 a month, but the dues pay for us to have a little network that has no advertising in it. There's no solicitation. It's just the most peaceful, sweet, friendly place to hang out that you could ever imagine. Plus, we've got so many exciting corners. We've got Victoria's fusion writing. I teach about the character traits. Julianne leads the Roanoke project. Mel leads the group on Llull's logic system. And we're not the only ones out there that have groups. So come on over to LiLLiPub.org and man, it's an incredible bargain.
That's
Yep.
right. All right. Well, thank you guys for playing.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah.